So one thing I would tell you guys, if you're a writer, when it comes to world building and when it comes to just writing in general, do what you enjoy when it comes to that. Don't take tips and advice from other people, I would personally say, because you don't want to take their tips like as gospel, almost like it's a religion. Because a lot of people are looking at things from their point of view, right? So let's say you're writing a story and you enjoy just world building, you know, just all day. Like that's what you do when you have your time off from work, when you're not at school, you sit down and you world build for like 6 hours. That's okay to do. Remember, your story has no time limit. It could take you 20 years if you want it, or 40 years. And if you want to build the most amazing parallel universe world ever, you know what I'm saying? Like your world, your what you're creating has like 7,000 different parallel universes, like Marvel. You have like 700 planets in each universe. You have the history and mythos. So you have like all the angels in your story, all the demons in your story, all the gods, and you have your own versions of different concepts, such as speed, anger, sadness. You know, good, evil. You have all these like manifestations of that, nightmares, dreams, whatever, kind of similar to the Sandman. If you want your world to be like that deep, like be DC deep or Marvel deep or Lord of the Rings deep, there's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, you might actually get bigger and more famous if you do that. Because you don't want to put yourself in a box and limit yourself based on what someone else is saying. Because the thing is, people, like I said before, people are thinking from their point of view. They might give you like the most stupid advice and literally limit you. And you might take their advice because you think that they know what they're talking about. But remember, everybody is literally just a person and just has their own perspective. They're just a person. You might be watching some random white guy who's telling you to do stuff a certain way because that's usually what you see on YouTube. White guys get more big than the black guys. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. That's how YouTube is set up. That's how the algorithm is set up. Like, no disrespect to white guys. It just is what it is. It's usually white guys and white women that are telling you everything. But you don't want to take dumb advice. You want to take people's advice with a grain of salt. Do not limit yourself. Don't put limiters on yourself. Do what you want to do and what you enjoy, because your art, the art form that you have, whether it's just world building for D&D matches, for you and your friends, whether you're writing a book, whether you just enjoy just letting your mind just wander and be able to draw and do, art like painting or whatever it is, don't put yourself in a box. Let your creative juices keep flowing. It's called a flow state. Allow yourself to flow. Allow it to come out. Allow it to bleed through your pages. You might create the greatest story of all time because you didn't listen to that one white guy who was like, "Oh, you need to trim the fat of your story. Your story's 3,000 pages. You might want to trim that down to 1,000," because they'll give you advice like that. But you know what I noticed? A lot of YouTuber guys who do that, they'll write a book and their book is trash. Because again, they're trying to appear like they know what they're talking about. But a lot of them don't really fully know what they're talking about because they limit themselves, because they also take other people's opinion too much. You know what I'm saying? They take what other people say to heart too much instead of just allowing themselves to be themselves, allowing their artistic talents to just kind of come out. There's a video that Michael Jackson has where I can't remember if it was Oprah. It was somebody talking about, I think it was Oprah, who asked him. They were like, "How do you create music?" And Michael basically explained you have to let the music come through your soul. God sends it to you and you just let it come out. That's how you do it. You don't try to force yourself to create music, because if you force yourself, nothing's going to come out or you're going to create something horrible. You have to allow yourself to relax and let the music shine through you and come through your soul. And that's so true. And everybody has their own music, their own superpower, their own thing that for some reason they're just naturally gifted at it. Everybody has that. My thing is literally seeing other things and creating it in my own image of what I like. That's when it comes to like characters in my novel that I'm writing, my fantasy novel, and the world building. I'll watch anime shows, I'll watch Marvel, DC, all different type of stuff, and I create my own characters, and they're nothing like the other characters. So you never have this feeling of, oh, he just copied that. Like for example, I have a speedster in my story. His name is Blurburst. He's a speedster. He's super fast like the Flash, but his style is so different. Like you wouldn't look at him and just be like, oh, he just copied the Flash. For example, my character, when he runs and he actually is at full power, you know how like the speedsters in DC have like electric around them? Mine has stars around them. It's just little golden stars. You know, and remember, everything is not nothing is original. So it's like everybody has done some variation of something. You know, but it's like my characters, you would never look at them and be like, oh, he just copied DC or whatever, or this is just homage to this character, whatever. Because I make them so unique. I give them backstories. I give them a birthday. I give them a zodiac. So one of my characters might be a Virgo. One of my characters might be an Aquarius. One of my characters might be from a planet that doesn't exist. And I get so much inspiration, like you're not going to be able to tell, like, oh, this is inspired by this. Now, there might be a couple of things you can see. Like I got kind of my own kind of Green Lantern Corps thing, Space Police kind of thing. It's like, yeah, you can see from that, like, okay, that's inspired by like the Green Lanterns, or that might be inspired by the Nova Corps or whatever. But it's so different from them, and the name of it is different. And mine is more like an army where like there's different levels to it. So it's like it doesn't feel like it's just a copy. But my whole point of this video is let the magic, let the magic of what your art is come through you. If God sent it to you, if your gift is world building, and that's how your story is based on world building and all these cool places like One Piece, let it flow. Look at Oda, who created One Piece. He lets his art flow. Let your art flow. Don't hold yourself back because some guy in the video is like, oh, you don't want to do this. You're making mistakes for doing this. And there's black guys who do that too. When it comes to like world building and write your own novel, there's like black guys who are like, oh, don't just randomly do stuff just out of thin air. It's like, bro, do what you want. If you have a story, you have a main character, and you need, for example, there's like a cliff, your main character can't get across. You can just create a freaking random dragon out of thin air. You can do that. But I personally say it would be smart. This is just my opinion. You might think differently. Give that dragon a backstory afterwards. Like, why did that random dragon come out of nowhere? As long as you give your characters backstories and the location that they came from and a reason for them doing things, it makes the story flow better. But just don't ever put yourself in a box. Let your creative juices flow and let yourself be free. Have freedom. Because a lot of the time we don't get freedom. A lot of the time, we're trapped, So be free through your art, and allow it to be free, Give yourself a chance to become something great, And instead of listening to other people's advice, create your own advice. Be your own man, Because people are always looking for a teacher. People are always looking for guidance. That's what I noticed. Instead of being the teacher themselves. You got to be your own teacher. You can learn things from other people, but it has to get to a point where you know your own path and your truth and what you believe and what you're good at and what God gave you that you have, that's your God-given talent, So that would be my advice. Like when it comes to writing, that would be my tips on writing. Hopefully I made some sense, but peace, blessings. Y'all have a good one.